Gilgaboo, Gilgaboo, Gilgaboo.
Gilgaboo the jarrow, as falch eru, gus Goll as Gaccan.
Goll as Gaccan, brought to you by the Gaelic Broadcasting Committee.
And that was La Bamba from Los Lobos. We're going to have a little look at various things during the course of the programme, one of which is Scollan as Scolligan, schools and scholars. So we'll have a look at the wonderful book Island Heritage by William Cubbon. And this is a book that we've dipped into from time to time on the programme. And indeed, the late and great Brian Stoll was a firm supporter. And this book was a great favourite of Brian's. For no reason other than this is how the book has fallen, we're looking at chapter 19. And this is Schools and Scholarship. And as ever, we open in this case with a old Manx proverb. Ta inzach comra stormer and dunya birchach, as te birches and dunya bach. So learning is an ornament of the rich man, and it is the riches of the poor man, which is a pretty good proverb, I think. Anyway, moving into the actual chapter, and of course, Island Heritage was written by William Cubbon, and when was it published? I always forget these things. I wonder if I got a page on it here somewhere. 1952 it was published, but I think it was written some years before that. Anyway, this is the chapter Schools and Scholarship. The first period of the literary history of man is prior to the 7th century, when there was no political separation between Ireland and man. The divisions of the Gaelic people of Ireland, Alban, and man were then regulated by race rather than by the accident of geographical position. The Gael everywhere were united by common origin and ties of race until the coming of the Norsemen in the 9th and 10th centuries. By the middle of the 6th century, Ireland had been amply supplied with schools and monasteries belonging to the Christian community, and books had multiplied, while through the influence of St. Columba, Iona, which later was included in the diocese of Sodor and Man, had won for itself a unique place in the world of scholarship. The earliest piece of testimony extant showing the close kinship of the Irish and Manx people is in the 7th century story related by Cormac in his glossary about a visit paid to man by Sensian Torpist, who was head Olive, which in Olive is the word for a priest, or chief, he says here, or chief poet of Ireland. What did I say? A professor, Olu, we would say, Olive, but chief poet, anyway, of Ireland from AD 649 to 662. Sensian, it is stated, was accompanied on this visit by 50 poets as his retinue, besides students. So not just the 50 poets, but a number of students as well. On their arrival in Man, the first person they saw was an old woman gathering seaweed who asked them who they were. After receiving their reply, she gave them a couplet of verse and challenged them to cap it with a corresponding couplet, which one of their number did. And sadly, at that, we don't hear any more. It would have been quite interesting to find out about that couplet. However, we'll have to find out about that another time. I do know that Annie Kissick has a story about that she's found somewhere. So maybe I'll catch up with Annie sometime to hear about that. Time for a piece of music. And we're going to hear now from Emily Sandé. And this is a track, a piece of music called Shine. Sadly, I think the shining from the weather has passed us by, but there we go.
Let's keep it real. Say how you feel. Like you got the whole world behind you. And break all the rules. Or love who you choose. Just make sure it's love that lights your fire. If you gotta let love be you, you gotta let
Guller's Gaccan, brought to you by the Gaelic Broadcasting Committee.
Station National Radio Vine.
When I die and they lay me to rest, gonna go to the place that's best. When they lay me down to die, going on up to the spirit in the sky, going on up to the spirit in the sky. That's where I'm gonna go when I die. When I die and they lay me to rest, I'm gonna go to the place that's the best. Prepare yourself, you know it's a must. Gotta have a friend named Jesus. So you know that when you die, it's gonna recommend you to the spirit in the sky. Going on up to the spirit in the sky. That's where you're gonna go when you die. When I die and they lay me to rest, I'm gonna go to the place that's the best. Never been a sinner, I've never sinned. I've got a friend named Jesus. So you know that when I die, it's gonna set me up with the spirit in the sky. Going on up to the spirit in the sky. That's where I'm gonna go when I die. When I die and they lay me to rest, I'm gonna go to the place that's the best. Going on up to the spirit in the sky. That's where I'm gonna go when I die. When I die and they lay me to rest, I'm gonna go to the place that's the best. Go to the place that's the best. Go to the place that's the best.
And that was Spirit in the Sky by Doctor and the Medics. And I seem to, I hate to say this to people, but I seem to remember this being in the hit parade, so to speak, when I was at university. So I guess that's probably 42 years old, maybe not quite 42 years old, but it's certainly a piece of music that's been around for a while. Anyway, let's get back to William Cubbon. So we're looking at the wonderful book Island Heritage, written by the former director of the Manx Museum and National Trust, William Cubbon. And that we've got to chapter 19, Schools and Scholarship. And this next part of the chapter is the coming of the Norsemen. In the 9th century, island and man were shaken from shore to shore with ever-recurring alarms by the coming of the Vikings, and the people lived in a state of terror. Numbers of invaluable documents and sacred relics were destroyed by them, and learning was made well nigh impossible. In the 10th century, the influence of Ireland as a Christian civilizing power was paralysed, while the indigenous and native Christian church in Man and the Hebrides must have all been almost wiped out. It is fair to say that William Cubbon does speculate quite a bit, so some of this may be taken with a pinch of salt. The scholarship of the Manx is the next part of the chapter. Every monastery in the Middle Ages was more or less a place in which reading and writing were cultivated and was an active centre of literary work. Oral literature, handed down by many generations of bards and storytellers, was first committed to writing in the monasteries, and we have, in the Chronicle of Man and the Isles, an example of this, the only one of many books which has escaped destruction. This precious chronicle is clear evidence that the monks of Rushen Abbey were scholars. We have sufficient evidence to believe that there was a school of learning there where the scholars were taught Latin and the rules of Christianity, in addition to the arts of peace as applied to agriculture. The men who designed and wrought the beautiful stone monuments in Man were, of course, scholars. It was not until the 14th to the 15th century that the ancient Scandinavian legends came to be written in Iceland, a country far removed from ours, but we have clear evidence that some of these great northern stories were pictured upon the Manx stone monuments hundreds of years before. This astonishing fact throws a significant light upon the development of the prose epic among people who were kin but in two widely separated countries. From the time of the death of King Magnus of Man in 1265 to the grant of the isle to Sir John Stanley in 1405 was a dismal period in Manx history. Although it was frequently plundered, there were still some treasures in the form of writings left, for Bishop Russell, in the synodal ordinances issued by him in 1350, ordained that the altars must be properly furnished with books, a chalice of silver or gold, but the church and all its books must be kept clean and decent. Well, indeed they must. I think with that ringing message in our ears, or message ringing in our ears even, it's time for another piece of music. So next we will hear from, who was it now? Let's have a look. Oh yes, Cian, C-I-A-N, Cian Ducrot, who apparently is a Grammy award-winning Irish singer-songwriter who rose to prominence with his single All For You, which gained popularity in 2022 via TikTok of all things. So let's listen to Cian Ducrot, or Ducrot, I don't know, Ducrot, well yes, it doesn't say how to pronounce his name, apologies if he's listening, and this is called I'll Be Waiting, apparently.
Leave your keys if you're not coming home. You packed your bags full of letting go. You were moving in, now you're moving on. There's no getting used to you being gone. You were down, now you're giving up. Just a false start if you're quitting on us. Another year, just another lie. Wish you'd call so I could say goodbye and let you know I'll wait for you every night. If you ever wanna fall in love, if you ever wanna bet on us, if you ever wanna be my one, I'll be waiting. If you ever want one more night, if you ever wanna make things right, if you ever wanna change your mind, I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting. Never thought that you'd be giving up, 'cause with all the time and you're tired and you fell out of love. crash the landing. You'll end up right back where I'm standing. And then you'll know I'll wait for you every night. If you ever wanna fall in love, if you ever wanna bet on us, if you ever wanna be my one, I'll be waiting. If you ever want one more night, if you ever wanna make things right, if you ever wanna change your mind, I'll be waiting. If you ever wanna fall in love, if you ever wanna bet on us, if you ever wanna be my one, I'll be waiting. If you ever want one more night, if you ever wanna make things right, if you ever wanna change your mind, I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting.
Station and nation, riding over it.
Mama, take this badge off of me. I can't use it anymore. It's getting dark, too dark to see. I feel I'm knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, 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 knocking on heaven's door. Mama put my guns in the ground. I can't shoot them anymore. That long black cloud is coming down. I feel I'm knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, 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 knocking on heaven's door.
And that was Bob Dylan, Knocking on Heaven's Door.
Guller's Gaccan, brought to you by the Gaelic Broadcasting Committee.
Station and nation, riding over it.
Guller's Gaccan, brought to you by the Gaelic Broadcasting Committee.
And that was the Mollig Band with our Manx track, and it was the Chanter's tune. A very lively way to invigorate the programme. Anyway, let's get back to the book. And we're looking at Island Heritage, and this is chapter 19, and it's entitled Schools and Scholarship. And we've now moved on to the period of the Stanleys. The first mention of the word scholar is in an order by the King of Man in the year 1403, recording the grant to Luke McQueen Scholar of certain portions of land called particles, which land were appropriate to the use of certain poor scholars, and which were given, confirmed, and conceded perpetually to the scholars by our predecessors, to have and to hold to the said Luke, as long as he shall remain a scholar for the benefit of the church. And that's from the Manx Society Volume 2, page 225. The particles, set apart by the kings of Man, probably by Olaf I in the 12th century and his successors, were tracts of land adjacent to churches where the scholars could subsist while they were students. This long-continued educational foundation, for such it must have been, was cruelly destroyed by the second Sir John Stanley. He it was who, in 1418, caused the Prior of Whithorn, the Abbot of Furness, the Abbot of Bangor and Saville, and the Prior of St. Bede in Copeland to lose their temporalities. Presumably that's the land of which they had in the island. In 1429 he defrauded the poor scholars, and the lands called particles were dealt into other uses. In other words, he took the revenues himself. The Stanley by modern standards, this Stanley by modern standards, behaved badly, but according to the canons of the day, his conduct was perhaps normal. How the poor scholars fared after their patrimony was taken into the Lord's hands, we do not know, but it can be certain that from 1403 to the foundation of the Academy in Castletown, there must have existed more than one school in which were trained the clerics of the church, and in which, with difficulty, was kept burning the lamp of learning. There were schools kept in Castle Rushen and Castle Peel at the close of the 16th century. About this time, 1610, Bishop Phillips, a Welshman, translated for the first time the Book of Common Prayer into the Mannish tongue, obviously meaning Manx there. And we'll finish this part of the chapter. Bishop Phillips, it was who frequently referred to the island in his discourses as Elian Shiant, the Sacred Isle. A century and a half before Philip's time, Thomas Stanley, Lord of Man, in a letter to the Pope, mentions that man had from the remotest times been honoured by the relics of certain saints, and that it has been commonly called down to the present day the Holy Island, and that was in 1458. So there we are. Yes, time for a little bit more music now. And now to slow things down a little bit, Moon River by Pixie Lott.
Waiting round
Gala's Gaccan, brought to you by the Gaelic Broadcasting Committee.
San Francisco Bay, House B39, early PM, can't remember what time. Got the waiting cab, stopped at the red light. Address I'm sure of, but it turned out just right. It started straight off, coming here as hell. That's his first words, we asked what he meant. He said, where you from? We told him a lot. We take a holiday, is this what you want? So have a nice day. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. Lie around all day, have a drink to chase yourself and tourists, yeah, that's what I hate. He said we're going wrong, we've all become the same. We dress the same ways, only our accents change. So have a nice day. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. Swim in the ocean, that be my dish. I'll drive around all day and kill processed fish. It's all money gum, no artists anymore. You're only in it now to make a more. So have a nice day. 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 Have a nice day.
And that was the Stereophonics with Have a Nice Day. Let's get back to the book. So we're still looking at the Island Heritage book, and this is the chapter 19, Schools and Scholarship, the Island Heritage book, written, of course, by William Cubbon, former director of the Manx Museum and National Trust, now, of course, Manx National Heritage. The Ancient Academy and Grammar School. It has been generally believed that our first school was started in 1668 when Bishop Barrow created the academic foundation in Castletown, and which ultimately ended in the creation of King William's College. But the Academy of Barrow and later the Free Grammar School of Castletown were maintained in the old chapel of Castletown, which was erected in about 1230 by the same masons who built the church of Rushen Abbey, long since demolished. Here is an extract from the Chronicle of the Monks of Rushen Abbey. In the year 1257, the Church of St. Mary of Rushen was dedicated by the Venerable Lord of and Father Richard, Bishop of the Isles, in the 5th year of his episcopacy, in presence of the Lord Magnus, King of Man and the Isles, in the 5th year of his reign, and while Lord Simon was Abbot of Rushen. It may seem strange to say, but it can be certain that the Church of St Mary, which later became the Castletown Grammar School, was originally maintained by the monks of Rushen. It was, like their own monastic church at Ballasalla, dedicated to St Mary, the patroness of the Cistercian order. There is a direct reference to the building in the manorial roll of 1584, where it is called Chamber Beate Mariae Vocat Scholae House, i.e. the chamber of the Blessed Mary called schoolhouse. So that we know that by the year 1584, a part of the chapel premises was already a school. One of the greatest scholars of Ireland, Archbishop Hugh MacCowell, who is known to have received his education in Man just at this time, may well have been a pupil there. The educational traditions of the Christian Cistercian monks had doubtless survived at the school, the chapel school at Castletown after the dissolution of the neighbouring abbey. However, the uprooting of the old order in the 16th century and the confusion of the Civil War in the next made necessary the reforms introduced by Bishop Barrow in 1663 to 1671. He not only established the grammar school on a regular basis, but has also, to his credit, the foundation of the academic school, the island's chief educational establishment. It is of interest that the lands wherewith it was endowed, Hango Hill and Ballagillia, had formed part of the domain seized by the Stanleys from Rushen Abbey. Both schools, the Academy and the Free Grammar School, which long continued together under the roof of the old St Mary's Chapel, must have preserved for the Manx people some of the educational traditions which would otherwise have lapsed with the destruction of the monasteries. An interesting reference to the early stage when the two schools shared the chapel with the church-going townsfolk is to be found in the diary of a visitor named Denton, whose original manuscript, dated 1681, is in the Manx Museum. There is a large chapel in the town and a school at the end thereof. The schoolmaster has £60 a year salary allowed by the Earl of Derby for reading prayers every morning at 11 of ye clock and teaching a grammar school, and for reading logic and philosophy to 4 academic scholars who are habited in black, wide-sleeved gowns and square caps, and have lodging in the castle and a salary of £10 a year apiece by a new foundation of the present Earl and Lord of Man. The Kirkmaloo parish vestry had the right to put an assessment on the owners of property in Castletown for the upkeep of the school. What proves this is the following document found by David Crane in the Rolls Office. Whereas the grammar school house of Castletown was about 2 years ago repaired, glassed, and made much more commodious with a chimney in it for the use of the scholars that are or shall hereafter be educated at that school, and forasmuch as the voluntary contributions toward that work have not extended to discharge the expense of it, the church wardens are ordered to collect an assessment from the inhabitants in and bordering on the town to clear off the arrears due to the several workmen. Voluntary contributions to be exempted, the church wardens to be allowed 1 shilling apiece for their trouble. For the next 150 years, up to the time of the erection of King William's College in 1833, nearly all leading Manxmen in the civil or ecclesiastic life of the island were educated in this ancient building. T. Brown writes of his father, the Reverend Robert Brown, he was educated chiefly in Castletown under the auspices of the Academic Fund. He never went to a university, and in the literary culture to which he attained, he was a conspicuous example of what could be done here. Well, I think it's past time for us to hear another piece of music, and then we'll return to this chapter. And Professor MacDonald was over on the island, and I caught up with him, and we're going to hear a lot more from Professor MacDonald and Maxine Cannon from the Post Office in a future programme. But he, of course, wrote the book about the sea kings of the Isle of Man. And, of course, the suggestion is that I think it was it Olaf, or I think it was King Olaf, that set up Russian Abbey, that established Russian Abbey. And, of course, Russian Abbey was the forerunner of the various schools and what have you that have followed, like the grammar school and latterly King Bill's. So, and a couple of pieces of music now to finish the second half of the first hour. And this is Cadel Cún by Joy Dunlop, followed by The Country Singer by Janet Devlin.
Station Nation Radio Vanen. Mach se vatin smekedi chapeliet tramioth Chara klashniach nam chwasal Svamos moinchen nan kio Vab me schaun am bruhaljan Von a huad mi bönskjal Vik moinchen nach buanu Ach so chuan nur vor Vik moinchen nach buanu Ach je dorstig gewaard. Gebeschen nie bjogucht, ach do jammer februar. Bracht je maart, je manne, kruich je vanaf. Ach, mocht ziet ne roon, aan het gewoon ze graai. Ach, mocht ziet ne roon, aan het gewoon ze graai. Says he's a born again, godly man, but the devil is his biggest fan. A joke from the country's own drove. The only line that he's walking is to the bar and back again. My heart's broke with his country's own trope. Trucks, beer and football, thinks he's all a woman could need. But I ain't never gonna ride you no Jolene. I won't be loosely, just gonna make you leave. I'm not the kind of girl who's gonna keep your car. I'll just go downtown and gossip in your favorite bar. Lord knows I won't let a country singer. His biggest hit on radios for a busty little blonde that he cheated on. There's no hope for that country song trope. He thinks misogyny's the French three-way, or cutting his beard would make him gay. Can't cope for this country song trope. Trucks, beer and football, thinks he's all a woman could need. Oh please, I ain't never gonna ride you no Jolene. I won't be loose sleep, just gonna make you leave. I'm not the kind of girl who's gonna keep your car. I'll just go downtown and gossip in your favorite bar. Lord knows I won't let a country singer. He's a washed up, used to be, still wants to be a star. Damn, he's wishing he could be like Jim LeBeau. Can never keep a girl, even his dog he ran away. I learned my lesson, yeah, he's never gonna change. Alright, bring it home. I ain't never gonna ride you no Jolene. I won't leave loosely, just gonna make you leave. I'm not the kind of girl who's gonna keep your car. I'll just go downtown and gossip in your favorite bar. Lord knows I won't let a country singer. The Lord knows I won't let a country singer.
Guller's Gaccan, brought to you by the Gaelic Broadcasting Committee.
Radio Bannon.
Take the National Express when the student who knows that to have one of those would be suicide. To the family man manhandling the pram with paternal pride. And everybody sings, yeah. All right, we're going where the air is free. On the National Express, there's a jolly hostess selling crisps and tea. She'll provide you with drinks and theatrical winks for a sky-high fee. Mini skirts were in style when she danced down the aisle back in '63. But it's hard to get by when your arse is the size of a small country. And everybody sings, yeah. All right, we're going where the air is tomorrow belongs to me.
When you're sad and feeling blue, with nothing better to do, don't just sit there feeling stressed. Take a trip.
The National Express. On the National Express. Let's go.
And that was the National Express with the Divine Comedy. Was it? No, the Divine Comedy with the National Express. I know I'll get it right one of these days. And starting off in a very lively fashion, the second hour of Goll's Gaccan. And of course, for those who don't know, Goll's Gaccan is going and grumbling. Now then.
And I'm sure I heard them saying it like that.
And that's nonsense. Never heard it like that at all.
Well, this'll have to be one of those for Kane's place name campaign, don't you think?
And of course, if herself says it's time for one of those Kane's place names, then it must be. And bearing in mind, we may well have a few TT riders and watchers, spectators, that's probably a better word, on the island. I thought we'd begin a lap of the TT course with the place names, the TT place names in Manx. And of course we start off in Dúlis, and Dúlis possibly means one of two things. It could be a Manx translation of Blackpool. Dú, of course, is black in Manx, and Lin, and sometimes Lish, could be, well, I'm not absolutely convinced of the Lish bit, but could be a pool. And of course, Dublin is the word for, well, Dúlin is a black pool. And of course, we've got a black pool just across the water in England. So it's possible that these are all linked in some way, and equally it's possible that I've just made it all up. So in Dúlis, in Douglas, the other, of course, suggestion for Douglas is it's Dú Glas. The rivers Dú and the river Glass, of course, come into the bay at Douglas. So either option is possible there, and no doubt there are others. However, we start at the Erdansay, the sitting platform or the grandstand to you and I. And then we head down Cronk Bray, Bray Hill. We get to the Quarter Bridge, which would be Carew and Droghad, I suppose. And there's lots of Droghads on this section because we get to Droghad Vradan. Droghad in Manx is the word for a bridge, and often the first letter of a word can change. So Bradan becomes Vradan. So Droghad Vradan, Bradan Bridge. And then we move along a little bit to Ballagary, the place of the Gary. Garies tend to be sort of sweetish, damp areas. That's Ballagary. And then we go through Crosby or Crosby, as my grandmother always used to say. There was a very distinctive S in there, Crosby. And that's a Scandinavian word, possibly Cross's farm, or maybe the farm of the cross. I'm not entirely sure on that one. Then we move to Cashtel Griebe. Again, the G of Griebe mutates or changes in Manx to a R sound. So Cashtel Griebe, Griebe Castle. Cashtel is the Manx for a castle. And then we've got another Droghad Griebe. Droghad Griebe Bridge, and eventually we wind our way along, or zip our way along to Ballacrane, which is Crane's farm or Crane's place, and that's the first bit of our trip round the TT course. That gets us 7 miles into the 37 3/4 mile course, and we'll do another little section of the course shortly. Time now for a little bit of music, and we'll go with ABBA and Chiquitita. Not quite Chiquitita, but Chiquitita we'll go with.
Station and Nation Radio Bannon.
Gullas Gaccan, brought to you by the Gaelic Broadcasting Committee.
Chiquitita, tell me what's wrong. You're enchained by your own sorrow. In your eyes, there is no hope for tomorrow. How I hate to see you like this. There is no way you can deny it. I can see that you're all so sad, so quiet. Chiquitita, tell me the truth. I'm a shoulder you can cry on. Your best friend, I'm the one you must rely on. You were always sure of yourself. Now I see you broken and better. I hope we can patch it up together. Chiquitita, you and I know how the heartaches come and they go and the stars they're leaving. You'll be dancing once again and the pain will end. You will have no time for breathing. Chiquitita, you and I cry, but the sun is still in the sky. is no way you can deny it. I see that you're all so sad, so quiet. Chiquitita, you and I know all the heartaches come and they go, and the scars they're leaving. You'll be dancing once again, and the pain will end. You will have no time for breathing. Chiquitita, you and I cry, but the sun is still in the sky and shining above you. Let me hear you sing once more like you did before. Sing a new song, Chiquitita. Try once more like you did before. Sing a new song, Chiquitita. Try once more like you did before. Sing a new song, Chiquitita.
And that was ABBA there with Chiquitita. Now, let's get back to the TT course, and we'll do another little section. We'll do Ballacrane to Skillamale. Ballacrane go Skillamale. So Ballacrane, Skillamale, Kirkmichael. So we go past Ballacrane, Crane's Farm, and we get to another Droghad, Villig, Billig Bridge. Then off to Brew Loris, which is the brew is the word in Manx for a bank. So Brew Loris would be Laurel Bank. Gleon Lamel is next, and that's Glen Helen. Next we get the revs up to go up Craig Willie Sill, and it's not Craig Willie's Hill, even though there is a hill there. This is Craig, which is the word for rock in Manx. Willie Sill, and there's a fellow called Willie Sylvester, and that's who the rock was named after. Willie Sylvester's Rock, which, yes, that's an interesting one. Then we get to Cronkavoddy, Cronkavoddy Strait, as we would say. There's the excellent place to watch if you're looking for places. Cronkavoddy, the Hill of the Dogs, Cronkavoddy. And then we get to Clach Vila Nenjeg, the 11th milestone. Clach Vila. So Clach in Manx is a stone. Vila is of miles. So Clach Vila is basically milestone, and then Nenjeg would be 11, the 11th milestone. Then we get to Conyale Hanley. So we haven't had a Conyale yet. Conyale in Manx is the word for a corner. So Conyale Hanley is Hanley's corner. And then we get to Bergarrow, which is the word basically in Manx for the rough road. I'm not sure how rough it feels as you're hurtling along at 100 miles an hour. I never actually managed that myself. But that's Bergarrow, the rough road or the rough way. And then we get to Clach Vila Trijeg, the 13th milestone. And then finally we end up at Skillamale, which is Kirk Michael, or the parish of Michael, I suppose, as well. There's another way of saying it. Skeela Male. And yes, maybe we'll get back to the TT course at some further point. Couple of bits of music for you now. The first one is Jacko, and this is Ladaniva. And now I think this was last year's one of the entries last year to the Eurovision Song Contest, but I might have got this completely wrong. I often do get things completely wrong, as many of you will know. But this was a piece of music I got from Owen Williams when we presented the Manx programme on a Friday evening, Ceola's Coosh, while Daniel Quayle was off on some great world tour. So yes, this is Jacko with Ladaniva, and then that's followed up with one of my favourite pieces of music by Status Quo, Pictures of Matchstick Men. Pictures of Matchstick Men. I'll spit it out, man. Go on, get on with you.
Chicken azat yes kepada duet.
status quo there with pictures of matchstick men. And anyway, obviously the TT is all but upon us, so I thought I'd go through a few simple Manx words that might come in. I mean, obviously, if you're new to the island, the greetings in Manx are Maramai, which is good morning, Maramai, faster mai, nothing to do with going faster, that's the afternoon, faster mai, good afternoon, sometimes good evening as well. And then Evi is good night. Evi, so faster mai is good afternoon, evening. Evi is actually good night. And then Narachin, that's the races, Narachin. Narachin TT, the TT races. And if you are racing in the TT, you'll be Machiach. You'll be Machiach Robri, Machiach. So Tammy Machiach Robri, I'm riding on a motorbike. Robri, literally a steam-filled push bike or two-wheeled vehicle. So a robbery is that. Sometimes, actually, the cavalyan can be used, an iron horse. I quite like that for a name for a motorbike, the cavalyan, but we tend to use robbery more often these days for a motorbike. Anyway, enough wiffly-waffly stuff from me. It's time now for a final piece of music for the first half hour of this programme, and this is Hiding in the Woods by Skeel.
Galla's Gaccan, brought to you by the Gaelic Broadcasting Committee.
Radio
Gullas Gaccan, brought to you by the Gaelic Broadcasting Committee.
And that, of course, was our Manx track. And we mentioned earlier Craig Willie Sill, the rock of Willie Sylvester. And that was the piece of music, Craig Willie Sill by MacTulloch Vannon. And a cracking piece of music it was too. Anyway, finally, we'll go back to the last little extract from the book. So we're back looking at the wonderful book, Island Heritage by William Cubbon, and this is the chapter 19, Schools and Scholarship, and we're in the section on the Ancient Academy and Grammar School. Even after 1833, the grammar school continued to flourish in the original building until 1930, and many of the present generation received at least part of their education within its ancient walls. Remember, of course, Cubbon is writing round about, the 1930s, 40s. He's writing this book. This venerable building, which has served the community through so many centuries of island life, from the time of the native Manx kings to the 12th century, the nursery of so many Manxmen notable in their day in church and state, having been no longer needed for school purposes, was sold by its owners developed the trustees of King William's College to the Castletown Town Commissioners. The trustees of the college, although they well knew there was a scheme for the destruction of the old building in the interest of the town improvement, strange to say, made no stipulation for its preservation. The building deteriorated and would have fallen into ruin but for the museum trustees, who took possession of it under an Act of Tynwald as an ancient monument. Thus, the building has been saved and will eventually be restored. Well, of course, it is restored, but we still, it's not always open. It's open occasionally in the summer. Going back to Bishop Barrow, he was a strong-minded prelate, and after he had become aware of the existence of an old scholastic foundation in the shadow of Castle Rushen, he conceived the idea of developing it and creating an academy for the teaching of the youth in theology, so that they might be ordained to serve the Manx Church. A noble object, but he had recourse to ignoble methods in order to secure the attainment of his aim. He had the ready ear of Earl Charles, 1660 to 1672, who, in order to allow him rope, made him governor as well as bishop. To finance his academy trust fund, he collogued the Earl to transfer to his name a farm which had once belonged to Rushen Abbey called Ballagillia and Hango Hill near Castletown. A spirited farmer named John Lace was set down in the official records as its rightful holder, a right confirmed on 2 occasions by the Deemsters and Keys. In the role of governor, Barrow ejected Lace and his family and captured the amount of the rent. The records in the Rolls Office testify that Lace was, for his insistence in claiming his rightful heritage, committed by Barrow as the sword bishop to the dungeon at Peel Castle. The rascal. It is curious to remember that the very lands which Edward III, Earl of Derby, 1521 to 72, grasped from the monastery of Rushen in the 16th century were equally wrongfully taken in the 17th century by Bishop Barrow, and the revenues applied to endow the academy. So if you've got problems with the government of the day, just think back to the poor old Mr. Lace and having his farm took off him. A couple of pieces of music for you now. Heart of Glass from Blondie, and that will be followed by A Little Time from the beautiful South.
Don't you mistrust, love's gone behind.
I need a little time to think it over. I need a little space just on my own. I need a little time to find my freedom. I need a little.
Funny how quick the milk turns sour, isn't it? Isn't it? Your face has been looking like that for hours, hasn't it? Hasn't it? Promises, promises turn to dust. Wedding bells just turn to rust. Trust into mistrust.
I need a little room to find myself. I need a little space to work it out. I need a little room all alone. I
need a little room for your big head, don't you? Don't you? You need a little space for 1,000 beds, won't you? Won't you? Lips that promise feel the worst. Tongue so sharp the bubble bursts. Just into unjust.
I've had a little time to find the truth, and I've had a little room to check what's wrong. I've had a little time, and I still love you. I've had a little.
You had a little time and you had a little fun, didn't ya? Didn't ya? Well, you had yours, do you think I had none? Do ya? Do ya? The freedom that you wanted back is yours for good. I hope you're glad. Sad into unsaid. I had a little time to think it over. Had a little room to work it out. I found a little courage to call it off. I've had a little time. I've had a little time. I've had a little time.
And that was the beautiful South with a little time. Well, we have a little time left, only a little time. So let's have a quick look back at the TT course. And where did we got to? We got to Skeela Mel, I think. So let's see how further on the course we can get. After Skeela Mel, we get to Lube Birken. Lube Birken. So Lube, I think that's the first bend that we've had. Lube is the word for a bend. So Lube Birken, Birken's Bend. Rhine Cullen, or Wren Cullen as it's often called now. Rhine Cullen. The division of Holly, I suppose. The dividing area of Holly, Rhine Cullen. Cullen is the word we tend to... one of the words for Holly in Manx. Holland, of course, is another word. But Rhine Cullen, the division, the dividing area of Holly. And then we get to Tai Alpach. Tai Alpach is the Alpine house, I suppose. And then Ballinalacha. Ballinalacha, the place of the loch. Ballinalacha, which is another way of saying Balaf. And then we get to Leuben Chwarel. Leuben Chwarel. And the Manx for quarry, of course, is quarrel. So Leuben Chwarel is the bends of the quarry. Quarry bends. Then we get to Cairage and Sulby, the Sulby Crossroads, Droghad Sulby, the Sulby Bridge. We've had Droghad before, and then Taimur Gensha, Taimur Gensha, the big house, the big ginger house, or ginger hall, in other words. So there we go. There we've got a little, almost, well, yes, probably over halfway round the TT course. And our final piece of music is by Barul, and this is Irina Grania, and it is such a beautiful piece of music written by Bobby Bob, John Billy, Robert Haslach, what's his name? Bob Carswell, that's the fella, and his programme Clare na Gael is coming up next.